Welcome to today's HealthLine webinar from the American Association of Kidney Patients, titled Reclaiming Your Energy, Sleep, Exercise, and Everyday Wellness for Kidney Patients. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jerome Bailey, AAKP's Director of Patient Engagement and Advocacy, and I'm pleased to lead today's webinar. As the oldest and largest fully independent patient-led kidney patient organization in the U.S., AAKP is proud to host our webinar series as a service to our fellow kidney patients, family members, and care partners, healthcare professionals, researchers, and policymakers. AAKP's HealthLine and HealthLine Innovator webinars fall under our Center for Patient Research and Education. We believe patient and care partner education is an integral part of an individual's treatment, and to that end, AAKP is a champion for full patient care choice, the protection of the patient-doctor relationship, and the elimination of artificial barriers and government determinants of health that impede patient care and access to available treatment options. Through our initiatives, we aim to make sure patients have a central voice in research and innovation. By leveraging lived experiences and unique insights from the kidney community, we help drive meaningful advancements across the entire product development lifecycle, from clinical trials and regulatory processes to payment decisions. As medical science progresses, with personalized medicine, cutting-edge technologies, and novel treatments, the potential for better outcomes in kidney care has never been better. Today's topic, Reclaiming Your Energy, is timely as we kick off the new year and speaks to many aspects of daily life for people living with kidney disease. Fatigue, sleep quality, and physical activity affect not only physical health, but also emotional well-being and independence. Through AAKP's Center for Patient Research and Education, we conducted an independent flash survey to better understand how kidney patients and care partners think about energy, sleep, exercise, and everyday wellness. The results highlighted common challenges patients and care partners face, gaps in education, and a strong interest in practical, realistic guidance that fits into daily life. To begin today's program, I would like to introduce AAKP's Vice President and Chair of Policy and Global Affairs, Paul Conway. Paul is a passionate advocate for patient-centered care, patient participation in true shared decision-making, and the use of patient insights in kidney research. As a kidney disease patient himself for 48 years and a 28-year transplant recipient, he has been recognized for his advocacy work with several national awards, including the President's Medal from the American Society of Nephrology. Paul has served in 4 U.S. presidential administrations, including as Chief of Staff for the U.S. Department of Labor. He was selected by the FDA to serve as the inaugural chair of the FDA's Patient Engagement Advisory Committee and has served on the American Board of Internal Medicine, Nephrology Specialty Board, as well as multiple CMS technical panels related to dialysis quality improvement measures. Paul is here to share the results from the flash survey. Paul, I turn things over to you.
Thank you very much, Jerome, and especially thank you for the survey tool that you put together and recruiting patients to participate in this. The data is really interesting in terms of what it says for patient understanding, and just as importantly, for the work that AAKP has ahead of it for education, programming, and new events. So we asked folks to describe how your or your loved one's current approach to managing their overall health and well-being while living with kidney disease. And what you'll see here is in the top cluster, those who are very confident and somewhat confident, that's about 57%, which is a great number. We're going to be very particularly focused on those who are neutral, not very confident, and unsure where to start, because that's about 43% of those who we surveyed, meaning there's a lot of opportunity to reach out and bring people to expert resources. We also asked which areas of well-being do you or a loved one currently focus on most. This was also interesting to us. Nutrition was number one, sleep, about 40%, stress or mental health, 38%. In the next two, physical activity and movement and managing symptoms, those we believe need to be moved up on patient priorities. It's clearly the advice that medical professionals give us. is to focus more on physical activity and managing symptoms. But you can see where well-educated patients are currently putting their focus. It's not a bad thing. It just means that we need to do more to make certain that people are better informed about the impact of physical activity in managing their symptoms. We asked how familiar you or a loved one was with lifestyle strategies such as sleep habits, movement, stress management that may support wellness with kidney disease. And here, 28% of the folks said they were very familiar with it, 31% said somewhat familiar. Concerningly, slightly familiar, listed at 25%, and not familiar at all was 15%. If you take a look at those last two numbers, those who are slightly familiar and not familiar at all, that's 40% of our survey recipients that responded that they didn't really have knowledge or familiarity with those things that would help improve their wellness in kidney disease. That is a tremendous opportunity for us and for our fellow patients to reach out and be more proactive as patient educators in these areas. We asked, as you or a loved one move into the new year, do you feel there is room to try new or adjusted strategies to support your overall well-being? And here, things are very positive. Those who said yes, definitely, or possibly, totaled out as 93%. I think we all feel like this at the beginning of a year. Hey, we start with a new plan. Our goal at AAKP is to keep it going, to make certain that people have relevant tools in a timely manner that they feel like they can incorporate so they can keep up this activity of improving themselves and improving their overall well-being all throughout the year. We asked what motivates you to consider new wellness strategies at this period of time, early in the year. Supporting long-term health, 31% said. Wanting to feel better day to day was 25%. Feeling more in control of their care, 18%. Managing symptoms more effectively, 13%. And reducing stress or overwhelming situations, 8%. What we looked at here were the top two numbers. That's 56%. As far as being focused on long-term wellness and daily health, we think there's a huge opportunity here to take that early interest in the beginning of this year and expand it so people have the tools that they need to be more in control of their care and manage their symptoms effectively, building off of those who are interested in long-term health and daily health. This was a very interesting one as well. We asked which challenges or stressors most affect your or your loved one's well-being as someone living with kidney disease. So just the idea of managing the symptoms that come with one disease, managing the idea of multiple health conditions, those are all over 50%. And then you can see the watering down here of emotional stress, managing appointments with providers, financial and insurance concerns, etc. Our goal is to make certain that we address the top line needs, but also through targeted programming like webinars and articles and other tools provided to patients, they can also learn to manage some of these other conditions that rate quite highly with patients. And we look to you as the audience after today's program to give us additional suggestions on how we can do this. We asked how confident do you or your loved one feel advocating for needs or asking questions about treatments, medications, or new innovations in kidney care. To us, this was very important at AAKP since we do so many advocacy events focused on Washington and state capitals, your elected and appointed leaders. 69% overall felt somewhat confident, or very confident, which is excellent. But we need to do more to pick up those that are being left behind with neutral and not very confident. That totals out to be 30%. We need to make certain that those folks are engaged, and we need to buck them up and make them feel welcome in the struggle and in the fight for advocacy for better treatments and better medications. We asked what barriers make it harder for you to focus on your overall wellness. And in the first one, uncertainty about what is safe or appropriate, especially in the age of disinformation or Dr. Google, is not surprising that number is nearly 50%. But those who lack time or energy or are managing physical symptoms, this is very important because the patients that are managing the burdens of disease are also being asked to do more to focus on their individual wellness. And so what we're committed to doing is making certain that we provide the best types of programming that are available on cell phone, available by webinar, in any shape and manner that make it easier for patients to get the information they need so they can feel better in control of cost and access issue or limited resources. We asked how helpful is additional education or support from organizations like AAKP, NKF, the many coalition members that are out there in helping you or your loved one navigate wellness, treatments, and new innovations. This was encouraging for us because if you take a look at the first two bars, 66% or nearly 2/3 find the education, support, and programming that organizations like AAKP do very helpful to them, either very helpful or extremely helpful. And that's a great, great tip of the hat to our career professionals that work with us and our allied doctors. However, what it really tells us is we have to use more patient insights and get more feedback from this particular audience to see what we can do to make it even more helpful in different types of programming. So for the 33% that don't feel as though the resources that come from nonprofits are there, can feel better enabled. So with that information, we'd encourage you to listen to our speakers today, including our great patient experts, our experts in this field. Listen closely and see what registers with you. If you have tactics and methods and strategies that you think might work better, we welcome those. Much of what we do at AAKP is informed directly by patient insight data, real-world evidence, and the opinions of people who have fought the many different battles that we know well. But it's critical for us at this period of time to reach out to those who might be left behind, who may not have the opportunity or the same chance to get the information that could help them change their lives and be more empowered in a doctor's visit. So they're not living their life around a disease, but they live their life in spite of their disease. So thank you to the experts involved. Jerome, as always, thank you so much for an excellent survey and for great participation in this. I think this will be a really fantastic webinar for our folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate you joining us today and walking us through those findings. As we move into today's discussion, reclaiming your energy, keep these patient perspectives in mind. Everything we share today is meant to be support small, meaningful steps forward. Now I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Sara Schaeffer. Sara is a speaker, community builder, and founder of Practice Your Positive and Team Positive, where she focuses on helping people build sustainable energy through mindset, movement, expression, and connection. Her work is practical and people-centered, avoiding quick fixes or forced positivity. With more than 15 years of experience in kidney care, Sara began her career as a registered dietitian and went on to work in dialysis operations, CMS contracting, and chronic kidney disease population health. She is a former member of the AAKP Board of Directors and co-producer and co-host of the Talk Kidney to Me podcast. Drawing from both professional experience and personal resilience, she brings a realistic perspective on stress, fatigue, and everyday wellness for patients and care partners alike. Sara, thank you for being with us today. I turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Jerome, and thank you, AAKP. It's such a testament to bring this quality programming and real practical needs to kidney patients year after year. So I'm so grateful to be here and to be able to share this with you. So today we're going to talk about training your energy. And really, it's a matter of training it and reclaiming it. We'll talk a little bit about sleep and exercise, but overall, it's a picture of how we can shape everyday wellness habits for kidney patients. Well, Jerome, you gave me such a gracious introduction, but I thought I would flash up a picture of me back in my dialysis days. This is where it all started. As he said, I started as a registered dietitian, first in the acute and then an outpatient. And I've been in dialysis and transplant, special projects for CMS and population health. So I have a deep passion and empathy and a lot of research on situations that affect kidney patients. And I'm really happy to be here today and share some of that with you. All right, so we're going to level set here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the reality of what your day-to-day quality of life is, because it can be so much more than your medical record, right? This is sometimes, I know when I was back in the clinics, this is, labs look good and the person is still very tired, right? They have low energy. They don't feel like doing things, right? Their whole quality of life can be affected totally independent of the medical record, right? We don't always have to pair those together. And so I just want to start by saying this is so much more. It's a much bigger conversation than just talking about labs and meds and treatment time and UF, right? This is a much bigger conversation around how your energy affects your quality of life. And so we'll start just by naming it, right? Fatigue hits folks with kidney disease just differently. It just does, right? There's a very complicated system, right? We have inflammation and, right, hydration status and, right, overhydration, medication, the treatments, whether you're on dialysis or you're pre-dialysis or you're transplant. There's a very complicated system where everything is kind of interwoven. And so I think it's really important to just recognize that fatigue, for all of these reasons, is not a personal failure and is changeable, and mostly that it's not your fault, that you shouldn't internalize that feeling of fatigue, right? We're going to talk about how fatigue can be a data point. So I just really wanted to start by saying that the fatigue that you feel, it is so real and it is complex and it's not your fault. As Jerome said, I like to anchor things in the positive. So I thought we would start right now by thinking about, what do you want more energy for? Maybe it's family time or grandkids, or maybe it's community and church time or neighborhood activities. Maybe it's some hobbies. Maybe you just want more energy to be able to go to the grocery store and get your regular stuff done without feeling so fried, right? Maybe it's hobbies. Maybe it's, things that you'd enjoyed in the past. But first, just take a moment and kind of anchor in, what do you want that energy for? Because that can be a really uplifting idea as we talk about this. Okay, and I love Jerome's introduction. It is so true. Too often we think about energy and quality of life, we go right to diet and fitness. And believe me, I've been a registered dietitian for, 16 plus years. I've been a lifelong fitness person. Your energy can be so much more than just diet and exercise. And so in the work that I've been doing the past few years since I stepped away from kidney disease, I really looked more into how we can train our energy more than just diet and exercise. And so I came up with these 4 training zones, 4 areas that really can be a source of energy for us and how we can, exercise those. And so they come down to mindset. We'll talk about this. Mostly it's your mental habits, things you tell yourself, your outlook on life. Movement, I'll do a deeper dive into this one. I don't just mean exercise. Expression is another way that we can generate energy by sharing our truth, right? Sharing our voice. And then lastly, connection. I'm sure you know this. Hopefully you have people in your life that when you spend time with them, you just feel filled up. You feel like you have more energy. And so it's really thinking about our energy as related to quality of life more than just diet and exercise. So let's go through these one at a time for practical ways and reframes that you can circulate more energy, feel like you have more energy for your everyday life without just saying, hey, eat better and go to the gym. So let's start with mindset. So this one I think we often think about, especially we think about positivity or staying, uplifted or motivated or inspired. And when we think about mindset and fatigue, I want you to go back to what I said in the beginning, right? We're thinking that fatigue, we need to reframe it. We're thinking that fatigue is not failure, it's just information, okay? So those days where you can't get up, you don't want to get up, or it's early and you're just crashing, scrolling on your phone, sleeping in your recliner, making something quick and easy for dinner. That fatigue, it's really information. Take it as a data point. And it really should be said too here that sleep is often so interrupted when it comes to kidney disease, especially the later stages in some of the treatments, right? We think about some of the itching, whether or not it's related to your phosphorus levels, restless legs, spasms, the treatment schedule, the amount of appointments you might have, right? And so we know that there's a foundation here of sleeplessness that can affect our mindset. So take that as part of this when we talk about fatigue. But then the other part of it is, right, we can control some of these things. And we'll talk later about not being able to control the circumstances, but being able to choose our response to them. So, little ways that you could use your mindset to get more energy. One of them is gratitude. There's a ton of research about really just how chemically profound it is to be grateful. And I know when I've gone through some of my dark times, sometimes it feels very hard to be grateful for things. But I just encourage you or challenge you even a little bit to find something in your life that you can feel grateful for. And maybe it is the treatments, maybe it is, the medications, maybe it is the support that you have. But finding some of that gratitude can really do so much for your mindset and then your energy. And then for all of these, just like physical fitness, we're going to talk about like scaling them up and scaling them down. So on a rougher day, and we think about having a positive mindset for more energy, just notice something that's going right? It can be really that small. And then let's say on a good day when you're having more energy and you're feeling a little bit brighter, that might be a time where you spend 5 minutes, journaling about gratitude or talking about gratitude or sharing with the people that you love. But just understand you can always scale these things even in the same week, in the same day, in the same hour, between how you're feeling, to take it easy with yourself and be able to adjust. This isn't something where you have to push yourself, no pain, no gain. That's not what this is. And the real mindset win is I'm learning my patterns. And so when you feel the fatigue, instead of judging it and shaming it, just notice, okay, these are my patterns. And the next one is movement. This is a big one. So the reframe here for movement is that we're going to say that movement means being in my body, right? Using my body to create energy. So, this isn't a recommendation to, hit the stair stepper 30 minutes a day. Like, no. Movement is, right, being in my body and being okay, being appreciative, being able to generate some energy by moving my body. And this often can really kind of fall to the wayside, especially if, you have a challenging, relationship with your body now, right? Maybe you feel mad or angry or frustrated that it's not doing what it used to do. Or maybe you have, foot issues or dental issues or other kind of body issues that make you feel like you were less in touch with your body, that you can't trust it almost in a way. And so movement really brings us back into that. And the other great thing about movement is it takes us out of our mind, right? We move our body, we're naturally not overthinking. And so it can bring us back into the present moment. So this, again, if we scale, thinking about, using energy to create energy, right? On a rougher day, on a day when you're feeling bad and you have low energy, this can be as simple as rolling your shoulders, right? And just letting it feel good, right? This isn't movement for punishment or movement to burn calories. This is moving your body and just letting it feel good to have this body right here, right now, whatever state it's in. So rolling your shoulders, taking some deep breaths, on another day that maybe you have a little bit more energy and you feel like you could do a little more. This could be, chair exercises, whether it's chair yoga or, just leg lifts, things like that. This could also be, taking a walk, just, walking somewhere instead of driving, or taking a walk just, up the street and back. And then on a good day, right, we want to capitalize on those good days. When you're having a good day and you have some energy, take 20 or 30 minutes to do something that you enjoy, and maybe it's stretching, maybe it's walking, maybe it's playing something, maybe it's dancing in your kitchen to music you like, right? Just being in your body will create that energy. And then the win for movement, the win that will get you energy, is that I appreciate what my body can do and how good that can feel. Expression. This is a big one that's often overlooked when it comes to thinking about our energy and our daily quality of life. And so when you think about expression, I want you to think about using your voice, sharing your experience. And the reframe here is you have to name it to tame it. The longer that you, me, we, any of us deny what we're feeling, don't share our truth, feel like if we tell people we're going to be a burden or nobody wants to hear me complain, right? And I've heard all of that over the years from patients and from family members too, right? But really this expression is speaking your truth, getting your needs met. And this is often with boundaries, right? Saying no when you want to say no, only saying yes when you mean it. But this expression of your truth, your experience, what you need, really it's been said that expression is the opposite of depression. It needs to come out somewhere, because swallowing what we're feeling, swallowing, our issues, our boundaries, our worries, even just swallowing our creative pursuits, right? Like any of those things is just so damaging to our body, and it weighs us down. It's one of those things that contributes to feeling like you don't have energy to live your life. And so when we think about expression, right, we're doing that same scale. We're going to, good days and rougher days, right? So on a rough day, when maybe you're feeling low energy, right, just talk out loud about, this is how I feel today. Just say it, right? I feel frustrated. I feel pissed off. I feel sad. I feel disappointed, right? Just saying it gives your mind that little bit of space to process it, and you'll be surprised at the weight that it will take off of you. And that alone can make you feel like you have more energy, right? On a medium day, maybe it's a journal entry. If you don't like journaling, maybe it's doodling or creating something, or even posting online, right? Doing a post without overthinking it, just being yourself and just showing up, right? And then on a good day, when we have a good day, think more about, right? Like trying to connect the dots and, I did this and then I felt this way, or right, I had a late treatment and then I didn't sleep well and then I had a crash the next day. Like trying to figure out some of those patterns so that you can figure out what your needs are and get those needs met by expressing them. And then the win for expression is my voice matters. And then the fourth one we're going to talk about today is connection. And certainly you've had this experience, right? You've been having a rough day. Maybe you've had a good day, right? But you're having a day and you're sharing a moment with someone. And don't you just walk away being like, oh, I feel so good. I feel so much better, right? It's so regulating to our energy to connect with someone else. And while we all love our smartphones and we're always on our devices and our iPads and likes and social media, there is no substitute for real connection in real life with real people. So the reframe here is, I don't have to do this alone. And we also know that energy is contagious. They've done research studies on this, that your energy literally is contagious to the people around you and vice versa. And not only just one person, it's actually 3 degrees. So me sharing my positive energy with one person, like it helps my friend's friend. Like there's 3 degrees. And so it really does ripple out. And that can be used both ways, right? When you are having that connection and you're talking to maybe a fellow patient or a neighbor or somebody, right? That can make you feel good, and vice versa. When you're having a lower day or a day where, you're feeling isolated or frustrated or upset, right? Putting yourself in places where you can have a positive connection with somebody else, like you can ride the wave of their good energy. So this can be, right, on a rough day, on those like down days, just one moment of realness, right? Maybe this is when someone says, hey, how are you? Instead of like, oh, I'm good. How you doing? Instead, just like be real, right? Tell them what you're feeling, use that expression, right? And have a deeper connection with someone. Or this can be taking a few more minutes with, your child or your spouse or your friend, and just, making eye contact, an extra hug, really connecting does so much to help regulate us. And when we're not burning energy and anxiety, we find that we have the energy to do more in other places. On a day that, you have some energy, plan a 15-minute call, right? Catch up with that person you always text, give them a call, hear their voice. You will feel so good. And that energy can carry into other areas. And then on a day when, or a week perhaps, and you have that energy, you have that time, there is no substitute for like a real, a longer conversation, whether it's a coffee date or a support group. I know AAKP offers them. There's others online. Having those deeper moments of connection do so much to tie us to our shared humanity, no matter what you're going through, whether, you're talking to someone who has kidney disease or not. We've all faced, challenging times, dark times, and connecting to other people lets us know that we're not in it alone. And the reframe here, the real win, is that I have people in my life who care about me. So if we think about those 4 training zones, right? Mindset, movement, expression, connection, 4 ways that we can train to have more energy. there's a real feeling, just like in physical fitness, we're like, oh, we always have to be like, go, and it has to be great. And, it's the New Year's and we're like, crush our goals and win the day and be successful. And like, that's just not realistic a lot of the time. Like, for anyone, right? It's very hard to live your life with your foot always on the gas. And so I just encourage you and remind you that there are seasons to life, okay? There are seasons where it will be easier and where it will be harder. And that can be affected especially by your treatments, your treatment schedule, your treatment modality, if you have a change in your disease progression, appointments, there's certain times or, periods where maybe you have a lot more appointments or unexpected changes, right? An unexpected schedule change or an unexpected hospitalization, right? Know that there are times that when you're having the good times, you'll do more, right? You'll naturally have more energy, you'll build that momentum, and you'll be able to, push yourself, encourage yourself to do more. And then there's times where it's going to be a little tougher and you're going to do less. And there is no shame in doing less. Sometimes maintenance alone is a victory, right? Just staying where we at is sometimes that's a victory, right? Especially when there's so much going on. And, just another reminder that don't frame this as like failing or losing, especially if you're new to the disease or there's been changes in it, right? There's going to be a rhythm that you have to learn both within yourself and in how you approach your care, and so you're learning the rhythm. And so really the real goal over this energy training and to thinking about your energy is to recognize those patterns instead of trying to have perfect days, right? So if I recognize that on treatment days, I come home and I scroll and I don't eat and I crash out on the couch. Well, okay, that's data, right? That means that I'm tired. Maybe I need to have prepared meals for myself. Maybe I need to connect with someone, right? Instead of being on my phone. It's just noticing those patterns in a really gentle, self-loving, self-caring way that will help you train your energy no matter what season you're in. All right. So how to start? So say you're like, all right, Sara, this has been great. I buy this. I love that you're not telling me to go on the Stairmaster for 30 minutes and eat nothing but, celery. Okay, this is great. So how do I start? So I suggest, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but right, just pick somewhere that feels doable. You don't have to do all 4, and it's not doing every day, but just noticing that you have these different levers you can pull, right? We don't always have to talk about just like taking medication, going to the doctor, right? Diet, exercise, right? There's expression, there's movement, there's connection. There's other ways to approach this training. And really, it's about having, a little bit more than last week. Even if it's just a little bit more awareness of your patterns or what affects your energy, all of that is progress and it should be celebrated. And just remember that small stacks, make big results, right? And so we're thinking about consistency over intensity. Don't try and do a million things a week. You're not going to get it done. Just start with one thing. Add one thing that feels good and just do it enough until it's a habit. And then, try another thing. And I just love to say too, we always say like, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Listen, 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still progress. And that's honestly how most progress is and most progress feels no matter what level you're at. But the important thing is just to recognize this and give yourself the permission to put yourself first, right? To prioritize yourself and your energy, knowing it has such a big effect on your quality of life. And lastly, I wouldn't be here if I didn't say, talk to your care team. It's so important to share your lived experience. And I think there's been a real shift. I know even in the years that I was in kidney care, a real shift to really, patient empowerment, right? Hearing your voice, wanting you to be at, making the care plan like a living document and really making it reflect your reality more than just, labs and weight and your UF, right? And so sharing things about your fatigue affecting you or addressing your energy as part of your quality of life and your treatment plan, certainly ask about all the things, right? And we're thinking anemia, sleep support, mental health, exercise clearance, but just start those conversations because your energy, that's how we experience our lives, right? It's so tied into our quality of life, as we said at the beginning of this. And so, it's on you to really make it a part of the conversation. So thank you so much for being here and listening to this. It's a new idea, a new angle, but I think you'll find it very helpful in that it's a much broader way to think about how you can train your energy for a better quality of life, and to think about all those things that you thought about at the beginning of the program. What do you want, or who do you want more energy for? Using that as your anchoring, but just picking some place and starting small and noticing what works, right? Think about like a big experiment. Just try it and see how you feel. You have nothing to lose. These are all positive behaviors. The only thing that you can gain is either an awareness or a new habit that increases your energy and your quality of life. And just a huge thank you to AAKP. As Jerome said, I was on the board for a number of years and just a great experience. Always so grateful to be a part of anything that AAKP puts on. It is the premier patient advocacy, organization in the United States. And, I know that we'll continue to do great things.
Thank you, Sarah. I really, really appreciate you being with us today. I mean, you gave us some really good, realistic examples of things that we could incorporate into our life today. So before I let you go, I do want to ask you a few questions. Many of us hear the word movement and immediately think of exercise plans that we can't sustain. And I know you talked a little bit about this, but can you talk a little bit more about what does meaningful movement look like on low energy days?
Yeah, right. And, I totally get this. I know back when I was in the clinics, right, that you would hear the doctors go around and the doc would be like, oh, exercise 30 minutes a day. And I would see the person so lovely and politely nod. And then, I could just knew that their internal script was like, listen, I can barely get out of the chair. So yes, let's redefine movement. So movement doesn't have to be exercise. It's literally like, can you be in your body? Can you appreciate what it can still do? And can you move your body in a way that creates some energy without depleting it? So, again, right, great examples on low energy days. It might just be breathing, right? That is still movement, right? Taking some deep breaths, best that you can, shoulder rolls, rolling out your wrists, just rolling out your joints, just moving your body in those gentle ways. It could be, walking to the mailbox instead of driving, right? Taking those, bringing the groceries in, or doing some sort of activity around the house. It could also be, seated leg lifts in a chair, or some chair exercises, even just standing up and down from your chair. All of that can count as movement. Because I think, Jerome, the big distinction here is that movement is so important because it sends a signal to your body that like you're still in there, right? Like we're not shutting down today. Like we are still here. We are still in the present moment. And that present moment has so much more energy than when we're in our heads, worrying about the future, worrying about the past, overthinking things. So again, also, regulate this based on like a post-treatment day or a pre-treatment day. Really just work with your body's rhythm. And when you find those little pockets of higher energy, like use those, right? Like that's a great time to be able to do something that you've wanted to do. When you have lower energy, any sort of movement that just lets you know, like, hey, I'm still here. We're still in this, that's what really counts.
My next question for you is, stress often feels unavoidable when living with kidney disease. What are some realistic ways to reduce its impact when circumstances can't change?
Yeah, for sure. Right. And that's true. You know, uh, you know, Positivity therapy, there's nothing that's going to make kidney disease go away, or change your treatment schedule, or fix your insurance, right? Or take away the uncertainty of living with it. But what I know from all the years in kidney and even through my own tough times is that you can't always control the circumstances and the stress, but you can control and you can train how your body responds to it, right? So we have the circumstance, the kidney disease, the treatments, the wait list, the fatigue, and then there's that stress response, right? This is looping and overthinking and complaining and the muscle tension and, feeling wired and isolating. And that second part, is within our control. And so while you can change the circumstances, changing the way that you like metabolize, changing the way that you use that stress, kind of like eat it up, right? Like to express it. This is right, the expression zone. Again, even just a voice memo to yourself, right? Just saying it out loud, right? Better out than in, because once you say it out loud, it takes some of the weight out of it, right? Often in our head, we think the absolute worst case scenario. When we say it out loud, there's usually a little bit of wiggle room to be like, well, it's not entirely true, or well, I don't know yet. Maybe maybe I will get a kidney, right? There's that little bit. And also, right, the connection, right, texting somebody and being real about it, not just swallowing your feelings or feeling like you're burdened, like really sharing that with somebody, better out than in with that kind of stress level. And then I would also say like mindset, right? Like what's in my control right now? Like today, what can I do today? Because when we think about like, oh my God, the next 10 years and right, like that's overwhelming to anyone. So like make the window of what you can control like so small. Like what can I do this hour that makes me feel like 1% better? And then just do that. Like you can't eliminate the stress, but you can find a way to kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm a dietitian, like metabolize it, right? Like eat it up and like get rid of it, whether it's connecting or expressing it.
Another question for you. How can kidney patients best communicate with their healthcare team about mental and emotional well-being as part of their overall care?
Yeah. And this is another good one too, right? We try and be like really specific and tactical because, right, I know again, back in my kidney days, we would go through the care plans and we would talk about labs and meds and treatment and access. And then, there wasn't always time or that space to talk about like, how's your sleep? Is your sleep affecting your mood? How's your mood? Do you find that you have a lot of anxiety? Are you scared? Are you depressed? You don't feel like doing anything. And, in some ways, the medical system still isn't totally set up for those kind of vulnerable conversations. And so it does have to start with you. So saying things like, my fatigue is affecting my quality of life, and I want to address it as part of my treatment plan. My mental health is affecting my quality of life. I want to address it, right? We want to name the problem, whether it's fatigue or mental health or worry or sleeplessness. Connect it back to quality of life, right? Which is a huge thing that we're talking about, not just lab values. And then making it clinical, right? Having some responsibility and some accountability for the treatment team to help you come up with solutions or ways to manage it. That's where then you can get maybe more into the nitty or gritty about like anemia or sleep or, maybe someone to connect with for mental health or, therapy. Because really it's not that we're like, you don't have to ask your care team to like fix your emotions, but just allowing them to address the medical pieces that impact your emotional well-being is really, part of how you can start that conversation. And, right, in the full transparency for patient advocacy, if you find when you share that with your treatment team, they're not receptive or they brush you off or, right, there's no space for that, like that's data too. That's data for, is this the right fit for me, right? Do I need to bring someone with me to help me, advocate for myself? But don't give up and don't be shy, right? Like express that, give people a chance to rise to help you, as I know, care teams want to do. So don't be, shy of addressing it. And in the end, the patients that I saw that did the best over the years, it wasn't always the ones that had like the perfect labs or right, like the perfect anything. It was folks who really could treat their whole experience, right? Who could, stay checked in and stay on top of not just their physical health, but their mental and emotional health too.
And the final question I have for you, if someone could choose just one starting point, mindset, movement, expression, or connection to focus on first, how should they decide which one is best for them?
Yeah, good question. I love this. And so, especially, starting out, I would say, like, what is the lightest lift? Which one just feels like the most doable? Because it'll work if you do it. And so, we want to get a small win. We want to build some momentum, some confidence. And so, choose one that feels doable, right? Maybe it's your mindset if you're really beating up on yourself, like just reframe a thought, like, I'm not lazy, right? Like I have a complex treatment plan that contributes to my fatigue. Or if you feel totally stuck and like alienated from your body, maybe, it's just thinking about doing 2 minutes of intentional movement or dancing around your kitchen or coming back to your body. Or expression if you're feeling like all kind of jumbled up and like looping on stuff. And then, certainly connection if you feel, alone and you're isolated or you're canceling plans, text someone, join an AAKP support group. Energy is contagious and so is hope. So sharing that. And then I would say, while I said to do the one that's most doable, the real curiosity there is if there's one that you're like, ugh, no way. That's a really good data too, right? That resistance lets you know probably where your energy is stuck. And so if one of those you're like, ew, expression, ew, connection, like, oh my gosh, no, that's really good information too, that's probably an area that you really need needs a little bit of energy training in.
Thank you, Sarah. We are so grateful you could join us today and share your insights with the community. Your perspective and practical guidance are incredibly helpful, and we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Now I'm pleased to welcome our second speaker, Naisha Neal. Naisha has been a kidney patient and advocate since beginning her journey in 2015. She has experienced multiple treatment modalities, starting with in-center hemodialysis, then peritoneal dialysis, before receiving a kidney and pancreas transplant in 2021, which she affectionately named Ren and Stimpy. Naisha is an AAKP ambassador and previously served as a patient subject matter expert with the ESRD National Coordinating Center's Patient and Family Engagement Network, where she helped elevate patient voices and lived experience in kidney care. Naisha, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me, Jerome.
You're welcome. So to start, the start of a new year often comes with pressure to do more. How do you personally think about resetting routines in a way that feels realistic to your body?
The key thing to that question there is the realistic to my body. What I am finding is that a lot of people tend to focus on the new year, new me routine. And for me, I like to focus on the new year. It's time to learn my new body for the year. So, with that, I find that it's easy for me to frequently check in with myself throughout the new year and get to understand my body and understand the changes that my body is going through. And then also with that, I find that it's easy for me to make notes of what my body is going through. So as I start to see those changes, if there's anything concerning, I can raise those concerns with my transplant team and my other family or my family doctor and providers.
How did your energy level change over time after transplant, and what do you wish people better understood about that transition?
Yeah, great question. So with me, my energy level, what changed with that was at the beginning, I was full of energy. By full of energy, I mean I had more energy than I ever had when I was doing in center dialysis, any other modalities that I was doing. My husband and both my sons said that I was moving at the speed of light. However, that was at the onset. What I did start to notice is that transplant is just another modality. So what that means is for me, that meant that I still had those moments of being fatigued. It was just under a new modality. So shortly, I'll say within 9 months, maybe to a year, there were times when I was getting tired, but I wasn't getting as tired as I was when I was doing in-center hemodialysis or home hemodialysis or even peritoneal dialysis. So over and all, my energy level had greatly improved. There are times when my energy level is down, and when that happens, again, I check in with myself and I see what it is that my body needs, and I give it what I feel that it needs. And more oftentimes, it's a little bit of rest that it needs.
What role has sleep played in your overall well-being? And were there small adjustments that made a noticeable difference?
Yes. So, piggybacking off of what I was mentioning about sleep, with sleep, at the onset, I seem to have been sleeping well. However, what started to happen was I started dealing with insomnia. Just here recently, I had to go on uh, prednisone. And with prednisone, I normally don't take prednisone for my immunosuppressive meds, but I needed it during this hospital stay. I learned that with prednisone, it sometimes is going to cause some insomnia. So I started dealing with insomnia with since being with the transplant. Insomnia has not been something fun to deal with, but what I'm finding out is that um, speaking with my doctors to help give me medicine to help me sleep has been sufficient in helping me be able to sleep more better uh, and get the rest that my body needs.
Movement is often framed as exercise, but that can feel intimidating to a lot of people.
Yeah.
What types of movement have felt sustainable for you, especially when you have those low energy days?
The key word with that is movement. So for me, anything that I do, whether it's me going downstairs or washing the dishes or me coming back upstairs and laying in the bed, that is movement. Um, for those of us that who are even doing dialysis, going to dialysis is movement. Some things that I do for myself, there are times when I will do exercise in the bed or what I call bed yoga, where I will do different yoga positions in the bed or I'll do different stretches in the bed. Also, probably about 4 years ago, I purchased a MetaQuest or a VR headset. So I have different exercise routines or apps that I am able to use on there. But then there are those days when my energy level is just it's down. And I don't feel like exercising. And again, I'm just checking in with myself and giving myself that energy refuel that it needs, and giving myself that rest that it needs as well.
Now, how do stress and emotional loads show up in your body, and how do you recognize when they're affecting your energy?
Yes, this here is a great question. Along with my advocacy, I am huge on mental health within the kidney community. And so, stress with me, one who speaks openly about being diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, stress can sometimes have a great effect on me. I can find myself being sick from being stressed, and with that stress, I have found that I was stressed even when I was doing the other modalities. However, I'm finding that with transplant, I'm not going to say it stresses me more, but it does give me a bit more anxiety, only because you have this organ, and for me, I have two. I have the kidney and the pancreas that you do not want to lose. So just about every time you have a lab, you're stressed and you're worried about what's going to happen. And with me here recently, I'm requiring doing labs weekly. So it's like every week, my energy, or my not my energy, my stress level will tend to fluctuate. And I'm just finding out that having a mental health provider there for me has been awesome. Being able to speak with my transplant team on those days when I'm getting stressed about labs or overconsumed with thinking about that has been awesome as well. And then even more so, having the family support and the friend support that I have.
It's good to hear that you're able to seek mental support when the stress is getting too much for you. My next question is, at the top of this webinar, we learned the impact disruption in treatment access can have on an individual's overall well-being. In your words, what kinds of challenges, physical, mental, or practical, have you experienced if or when you can't get the kind of kidney treatment or care you need in a timely manner?
Thankfully, that is something that I have not dealt with in quite some time. However, when I did experience that, I was stressed. I was full of anxiety. I was worried. My labs may run wild and crazy, and on the inside, I'm panicking, and I'm contacting my doctor, wondering what's going on, and I'm not hearing back from my doctor. And I get it. My doctor knows that I'm well, but they haven't relayed that back to me. So because it had not been relayed back to me, it caused me stress, it caused me anxiety, wondering, and needless to say, everything was fine. But again, I don't want to lose Ren and Stimpy. So um I did find myself just kind of getting a bit overwhelmed at times with that. Now, however, I will be 5 years post transplant in May of this year. So I'm not trying to allow myself this year, as checking in with myself. I'm trying to not allow myself to um, stay stressed and worried about my labs, or if Ren and Stimpy is going to make it. And I just want to focus on today and how we can get through today and make it to the next day.
Last question for you. If someone watching this presentation could make, just one small, realistic change after this webinar, what would you suggest based on your experience?
Yeah, the best thing that I would suggest would be to um, look at writing things down. Write down, and there are apps for that. Find the apps where they have trackers that will allow you to um, gauge your mood, gauge your sleep pattern. Even get an app, the apps that allow you to track your sleep pattern and how many hours you were sleeping. Um, I would say that that is going to be something that's going to be beneficial for someone, because it's going to be hard to consistently check in with yourself and then remember what happened yesterday if you're dealing with brain fog, or what happened last week. But being able to have that tracker, or something to write down how you're feeling and what's going on, it's going to be great when you're dealing with the medical professionals, and then you're trying to look back and see, well, what happened in this situation that made me feel this type of way, and how can I improve it. And that way, not only are you able to help yourself, you're also able to help your medical team to help take care of you, with being able to provide some detailed information. So that would be the advice that I would give to someone.
Thank you, Naisha, for being with us today and for sharing your experience so openly. We truly appreciate
Yes.
your perspective.
Thank you so much, Jerome. I appreciated sharing.
No problem. And now I'm pleased to welcome our final speaker, Susie Danzig. Susie is an AAKP ambassador and longtime care partner whose connection to kidney disease is deeply personal. While she studied kidney biology as an undergraduate, it wasn't until she met her fiance in 2008 that she fully understood what kidney disease looks like day to day. Born with IgA nephropathy, her fiance has experienced in-center hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, and a kidney transplant. Through years of treatment changes and uncertainty, Susie has been a steady advocate and support system. Her experience as a care partner continues to shape her commitment to education, advocacy, and AAKP's mission. Susie, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. That was a very lovely intro. Tearing up
No
already.
problem. So, my first question, when you think about everyday wellness, how did your role as a care partner shape your own sleep, daily routine, and energy levels?
Yeah, so growing up involved with sports, health, wellness, sleep, nutrition, that's always been very important to me. When I first met my fiance, I was training for my first marathon and I didn't know the difference between a copay and a deductible. I was clueless. So when I met him and our relationship progressed, I had to dive headfirst into the American healthcare system, into what kidney disease was, what his particular disease was, what it meant to live with kidney disease, what it meant to be on dialysis, the different types of dialysis. So it really was a huge learning curve for me. But throughout the whole experience, there's so much out of your control that your sleep, your nutrition, those are things that you can control. So that's always been a priority for us throughout the whole experience.
Yeah. So, what was hardest to balance? Supporting your partner's needs or taking care of your own well being? And how did you work through that?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, after my fiance got his first transplant, we took up cycling. Like, we love riding our bikes together. Here in Los Angeles, we're kind of by the beach. So, like, we'll go to the beach, we'll go to the mountains in Malibu, like everywhere. And so when his first transplant failed and he had to go back to dialysis, forget about riding up a mountain. He could like not get through the front door. Like he was so exhausted from dialysis. This treatment just leaves you completely physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted. So he was couldn't get off the couch sometimes. But meanwhile, I had all this energy and this stress, and I needed my outlet as well. But do I go out and crush his morale even more because he can't be there with me? So it was a huge dilemma on, balancing being a caregiver and also taking care of my own um, physical and mental health. So we had to talk about it and have that discussion. And I think being with, our friends and, like laughing and having a good time, that would have hurt the most for him, that social aspect. So I just went ahead and, went out on my own, got the stress out, took care of myself. And then when I returned, we would either go for a walk, did what he could, or just not do anything and just watch a movie there on the couch. So it really was a balance and definitely something that, had to be discussed and addressed and worked together.
How did you and your partner adjust, daily routines when energy was limited or unpredictable?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we like to ride our bikes together, and usually, the group rides are at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. And it's like, yeah, when you have a dialysis session on Friday night, that's not going to happen. That Saturday morning is not going to happen. And it was always a priority to let him sleep as much as he needed, as much as possible. And then when he woke up, see how he felt. He wasn't always going to be up for, going outside. He wasn't, it was very, you know, unpredictable. So you just had to roll with it and, you know, adjust your schedule according to how he felt.
We hear that, stress management often gets overlooked for care partners. What helped you cope with the emotional side of caregiving?
Oh, yeah, that's huge. So we talked about the physical with cycling and everything, but the emotional, the mental is just as much, if not more, important. And for me, that was my best friend, Tracy. Like, um, to me, like it was so important to have someone to just talk to. And with her, we didn't talk on the phone. We would only text, but I would just text and text and text. And I didn't need a response. I didn't need pity or comfort. I just needed someone to be on the other side of that text. And she was there. Oh, I'm going to tear up. She was there, receiving all of my vents and my stress and my frustration and my thoughts and my memes. And that's really what got me through it. Like I couldn't have gotten through it without her.
Yeah, so just a way to release everything that was pent up in you was to like basically write it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Writing also is a huge stress relief, and getting out all of your thoughts. You cannot keep all of it bottled up. It is too much. It's too overwhelming.
What advice would you give to other care partners who feel guilty prioritizing, rest and self-care?
Oh, don't. Don't feel guilty, because as a caregiver, you have to be ready when the time comes. And for anyone on the wait list waiting for a kidney, you know what it's like to be waiting for that call. And so you have to be ready when the time comes. And it's kind of a long story, but let me tell you about our situation. So another thing that we like to do together before he had to go on to dialysis was travel. And forget about traveling while you're on dialysis. You are tethered to this machine to keep you alive. So it's not gonna happen. But so I thought for New Year's resolution, we would pick a place 2 to 3 hours flying distance from LA that we've never been before, and we'll leave Saturday morning and come back in time for his treatment on Monday. It's the best we could do. We were doing what we could. And so April comes around. It's our first weekend trip, and we pick Austin. And I told him, I was like, watch, the moment we go on this trip, that's when you're going to get the call. So we get to Austin, check into the hotel, go get barbecue. Amazing. We're walking down Congress Street, and his phone rings, and he shows it to me. And it's a 480 number, Phoenix. Okay, just a little bit of background. Yeah, we were registered on the wait list here in California, but we also had to go to Phoenix because the wait list there was half as long. So there was a lot of traveling back and forth to Phoenix. But so we're in Austin. He gets the call, Phoenix. We turn off into a side street, and we're like pressing our ear and like listening to the speakerphone because it's so loud, trying to hear everything. And we thought we were prepared. But then they're like, telling us all this information, like it's deceased versus living donor. Is that okay? Yeah, of course. It's this number, that number, this statistic, that statistic. Is that okay? Of course. Just give us the kidney. Like, yes, it's okay. When can you get here? And so here I am on my phone, like looking up flights, first one out to Phoenix, booking it on my phone. And so we get it all set. We go back to the hotel, bawl our eyes out, and then tell them the situation and go to Phoenix. So we get there, go to the hospital, Mayo Clinic, and the next morning he has his procedure. And meanwhile, all we had was the clothes that we brought on our 2-day weekend trip. So after the surgery, his doctor was like, if you're going to go, get all your stuff, do it now while he's still here. He's knocked out, recovering, go. So I haul to the airport, stand by, first flight back to LA, get there, pack up all of my clothes, all of his clothes. I don't know what he needs, all of his stuff. and my computer, my monitors, because I have to tell work that I'm going to Phoenix for 6 weeks. So thank God for remote work now. It never would have been possible for me or my fiance. Get as much sleep as I could that night, and then as soon as I woke up, 6 hours drive back to Phoenix. And if I hadn't prioritized like sleep and well-being ahead of that, I didn't get good sleep sleeping on a chair at the hospital. I didn't get good sleep that night, but I had already like prepared enough leading up to that I was just running on pure adrenaline and elation and happiness and joy. And I had thought about this day for so long, all of the steps, that all I had to do was go through the steps. So, as a caregiver, you have to prioritize that well being and taking care of yourself as well. Because when you get that call, when the moment comes, you have to meet it and you have to be ready.
Such a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Susie, thank you for being with us today and for sharing your perspective so openly. We appreciate you giving voice to Care Partner experience and for the advocacy you do for this kidney community. I'd also like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their time, expertise, and personal experiences with us today. If anyone watching has additional questions for our speakers or about today's webinar that we were unable to get to, please email us at info@aakp.org, noting the webinar title in the email subject line. In closing, if you are not already a member of AAKP, we encourage you to join. AAKP offers free membership to patients and their family members, as well as living kidney donors. To become a free member, join online at aakp.org/join or by phone at 1-800-749-2257. To receive all the benefits of membership, please be sure to include your email address when signing up. As an AAKP member, you will be notified about all of AAKP's upcoming events, the latest in our educational program series, and when opportunities arise where your opinions and experiences are needed to help inform innovation, advance care, and make a meaningful impact to improve lives. We encourage you to respond to our flash surveys and other engagement opportunities to help us elevate the independent patient voice and change status quo kidney care. You will also receive a digital subscription to our bi-monthly magazine, AAKP Renal Life, and can select to receive any of our 5 different electronic newsletters, all for just signing up. We also invite you to check out our blog to read some great articles and patient profile stories, and follow us on social media for all the latest news and to keep up on what's trending. AAKP is dedicated to helping kidney patients across the disease spectrum understand their condition and take control of their health care. We are proud to offer a variety of resources for both patients and care partners. By visiting our website at aakp.org and clicking on the AAKP Store button at the top of the homepage, you can find a variety of educational brochures and online tools to order or download free of charge, including titles such as The Pocket Guide to Managing Kidney Disease, Questions to Ask Your Healthcare Team, and the Coping, Thriving, and Living with Kidney Disease brochure. Please also consider checking out AAKP's on-demand mind and body sessions by visiting the link on your screen. And be sure to save the dates for AAKP's 2026 Awareness Days. On April 5th, we observe National Phosphorus Awareness Day, focused on helping patients better understand phosphorus, how it affects bone and heart health, and practical ways to manage it through diet and treatment. On May 1st, we recognize National High Potassium Awareness Day, raising awareness about potassium, balance, symptoms recognition, and the importance of timely lab monitoring and treatment adjustments. And on June 3rd, we recognize National Itch Day, highlighting a symptom that is often overlooked but can have a significant impact on quality of life for people living with kidney disease. In addition to these awareness days, AAKP supports patients year-round through our Every Patient Safe campaign, which provides education and tools focused on emergency preparedness, infection prevention, and patient safety. To learn more about these awareness efforts and access resources, visit the AAKP website. We would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our webinar speakers, Sara Schaeffer, Naisha Neal, and Susie Danzig, for graciously participating in today's HealthLine event. Their expertise and insights greatly enriched the discussion and provided valuable information. Thank you again for joining. We look forward to you joining us for another great HealthLine event.